a profit. I'm the boss, Willy Wonka, but it ain't chocolate. Yeah, I'm just being honest, I work for this shit. I'm usually modest, but this beat lit, so I'm going off thoughtless, talking my shit. Yeah, I'ma be the hottest designer in drip. I'm just coming with the rawness. I gotta admit that I'm usually modest, but I work hard for my shit.
I'll do the work, yeah, I'll do it till it hurts. I'll invest in my future, I'll invest in the purse. I wanna be so rich, life changes, and I don't ever think about how much I just pay it. Yeah, it's a dream, the American dream. Live on top, don't stop till you got everything. But there's balance, cause this life is a challenge. You gotta live in the now while building up the
type
talent.
to make commas, turn a profit. I'm the boss, Willy Wonka, but it ain't chocolate. Yeah, I'm just being honest, I work for this shit. I'm usually modest, but this beat lit, so I'm going off thoughtless, talking my shit. Yeah, I'ma be the hottest designer in drip. I'm just coming with the rawness. I gotta admit that I'm usually modest, but I work hard for my shit.
It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. So keep working till it's hurting, cause that's when you start deserving everything you want, everything you need. Trust the process, yeah, you got this. Keep on working till you bleed. Yeah, I've been there, yeah, I've done that. 10 long years of breaking my back, but now I'm up here, never looking back. I got more dreams that I wanna go attack. Keep on going, keep on moving, never give up. I'll keep going, I can prove just what I'm made of. I got that fire in me, got that desire in me. I'm never tired, I'll be pushing till I'm finally free. I was made to break away from the pack, to challenge, to fight, and to carve my own path. This world wasn't made for the weak, they don't last. Survival of the fittest, so be vicious and attack.
I'm the type to make commas, turn a profit. I'm the boss, Willy Wonka, but it ain't chocolate. Yeah, I'm just being honest, I work for this shit. I'm usually modest, but this beat lit, so I'm going off thoughtless, talking my shit. Yeah, I'ma be the hottest designer in drip. I'm just coming with the rawness. I gotta admit that I'm usually modest, but I work hard for my shit.
I like to get paid, that's why I work every day. I'll be making money till I'm in my grave. Don't care what they say, I'll buy time with my money. Laughing to the bank cause it's funny. The money keep coming, I manifest it. Sing these lyrics and you'll get it. I'm the bank, come invest it. I get tracked and I have it. Money finds me attractive.
I'm the type to make commas, turn up.
Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. Hello and welcome to the Marko Yamashita Show. I'm your host, Marko Yamashita. And in case I do sound a little ill here to you, I am unfortunately battling another inner ear infection. But I wanted to come and discuss some of the things that were said during the Legal Matters stream yesterday regarding the Nijisanji and Doki Doki incident. If for nothing else, to either provide clarity or what the actual law says, because I'm not sure if perhaps Mr. Esquire only only does a surface deep type of scan of the information that he's looking for, or perhaps he is trying his best to purely look at only explanations that are written in English. I'm not entirely sure what his process is for doing this. But I wanted to go ahead and go through some of this information here. And as you can see on the first section that we're going to look at here is him utilizing the this page here, which is on user-centrics. And user-centrics itself is not, they are a company. They are not an entity that is, that they utilize in store, and they are a service provider for personal information. However, so they do have to comply with laws themselves, right? However, as a whole, they are not an end-all authority of what the laws are that he is attempting to discuss. Okay, and also the information here, while it was posted on February 1st, 2023 by User-Centrics, the Japanese privacy laws have been edited and updated more than a year after this has gone, whoever actually wrote this article. So the information that is provided here is dated, okay, and the information that is provided on this page does not reflect what the current privacy, slander, or data laws are that are on the books, because a number of these laws have either been enacted or are continuously being enacted or even looked at. And if we look at the Nikkei Asia website here, which is a news site in Japanese and English and internationally, we can even see as of last month, Tokyo is continuously working on new laws and crafting new laws that will be required by social media platforms to respond to users' claims of online defamation. Now, this in itself is, something that is in process. However, as we can see here by the chart here, we can see that the user-reported online defamation cases in Japan have continued to grow. This is a growing section of legal cases that are continuously going up higher and higher and higher. And they even provide additional stats here where they talk about people in their 20s are most at risk, with 24% in this age reporting have been targeted of online defamation. In your 30s, 22, so on and so forth. And of course, this number is going to go down as people get older, because they are likely either just blowing it off and saying, hey, they'll see whatever they want, or because they are more adversely affected by age and the adoption of technology that goes higher. Users on X are most likely to report online defamation at 54, followed by Facebook and Instagram. All this stuff here is showing that there has been a continuous effort by the Japanese government to adopt and update their codes. And this article here, when you compare it to not that one. When you compare it to what is already in play, you'll see that there is more information that is excluded from this article which is basically just a summary. This is not they break all of this down here in certain sections. However, this does not include anything that happens after 2020. And there are at least three more revisions to the law that are either going to be they're either going to be um, they're either going into effect, or they are already in effect, that is not covered by this specific law or this specific document. Now, if we look at this right here, the last version I had been put up online here is 2021. All right, so we are already looking at a year difference between laws that are listed on this site and laws that have yet to be put in effect. Now, the reason why I'm drilling that in on right now is because he utilizes a few things that we will be talking about here shortly that are extremely important when it comes to what he's trying to represent as law in the in Japan. Okay, so let's go look over here really quickly. Okay.
Niji. Other livers weren't in the Niji video and did nothing wrong and are being treated by the mob as suspects. It's very sad. Well, you can't, like, obviously if you're harassing, that's wrong, right? So you shouldn't be in the chat just like blaming people, especially the ones that are not in the video that definitely didn't have anything to do with that, right? I mean, I don't support or condone that, and I never called for that. So, yeah. So I assume you're talking about harassment of other Niji livers. Obviously, that's not good, not cool. People shouldn't be just randomly harassing people for no reason.
Okay, so first off, Mr. Esquire here, what he is saying is absolutely correct. Yeah, other libraries that are not involved in this situation, that may have been, their images may have been included in the video, or perhaps even dropped they have a segment that they sing, things like that. That is absolutely true. However, Japanese law stipulates that it's not just that you can't do that, it's that it's actually against the law to slander or harass people that are that are online on social media. And if we go over and look at the actual law, which I am extremely curious why he did not, or has not actually discussed this. Oops. Hang on. If we actually go into the law, and in order to see what the law actually states, and I can't believe I don't have that. I know I have that tabbed. Where is it? Oh, sorry about this. I usually try to have all my tabs set up in advance, so when I talk about these things, I can automatically just pull them up. There you are. Okay. So if we actually go online and look at what the actual laws are involving with defamation of character, so on and so forth, um, and we've talked about this one before. We've absolutely talked about this one before. Current law in Japan, as written, is defamation is an expression either by word or writing designed to bring injury to another's good fame. No distinction is made between libel and slander in Japan. Okay, for the first line here, essentially spells out exactly what defamation is. Okay, now under the civil code, defamation constitutes an unlawful act, which monetary compensation and or other suitable measures, such as a public apology to restore one's reputation, are required. Okay, now when we look at what the individual articles stipulate here, and we'll be doing that in more detail here in a second. These laws and the articles that fall under this law can legally allow Nijisanji and their livers to pursue action against anyone who is slandering them, or them as a person or character, and their company. Now, let's go to the second soundbite here real quick, okay? And oops, not that one. This one. Okay, we'll go to the second soundbite here.
Difficulties that come along with that. So let's continue with this legal analysis regarding VTubers and their characters. So this is really interesting. So, however, judging the object of defamation is a VTuber, things get complicated because VTubers are technically characters, and characters, specifically like a fictional character, is not legally acknowledged as a person.
Okay, so Mr. Esquire is pushing the argument, stating that according to the article that he is reading, he is saying that VTubers, the fact that VTubers are technically characters and characters cannot be legally acknowledged as persons, is already disputed and has been tested in court. All right, and because it has been tested in court, and the person and the VTuber are considered the same, or they're actually considered legal entities because of either property and IP laws, or because there is a specific ownership, that this entire narrative that he is initially talking about has no weight. All right, and again, there has been at least one case that has been brought to court that has had a judgment by the court system where the judge deemed that the VTuber as an entity and the person behind as an entity have a right, and there is a distinction where you can direct comments and or slander against the person behind, or you can direct comments and or slander towards the character. Okay, now the distinction here is if you direct comments towards the person behind, you have to be able to prove that those comments are directed to you personally, as opposed to if comments are made towards the character. Like, let's say that, Hachima, we say something about Hachima, right? About how crazy she is, or about how, yabai she is, right? If we direct it towards something she does while in character, that is only directed towards the IP and the entity of Hachima themselves. Now, if we are talking about the person behind, and say we're having a narrative and discussion about Hachima, the person behind, and her recent health problems, there is a specific distinction, because the character that is being portrayed, the IP that's being portrayed, is not the one that we are discussing, and we're discussing the person behind. Right? So there is precedent, and character slander and defamation has already been tested in court, where while there is a distinction between one and the other, you can still take to court what is happening based on current law that includes amendments that have recently gone into effect for online slander, and laws that were already in effect before this year about slander and defamation itself. Okay.
So most jurisdictions don't acknowledge as a person. However, that is changing, and that has changed in Japan. So Japanese lawyer comments that in cases of defamation, it is normally possible to lodge either a criminal or a civil charge. However, as most VTubers characters VTubers are characters whose real identities are not publicly known, it's hard to argue that slander can hurt their reputation in society. So typically, criminal liability is not acknowledged.
Okay, now, this statement and this article that he is reading, they are a bit dated, and also this article, or what he's reading, is extremely misleading. Okay, let me see if I can pull that article up here real quick, because we will. And the reason why I'm saying that it's misleading here is not because I'm trying to prove him wrong. See, this article was written. This was a pretty recent article. I'm surprised that the author of this article is stating this, because, and perhaps they just have not done the research here, because the what he's reading here is this part right here, right, where he is saying that the object of defamation is a VTuber. Things get complicated when judging whether legal action is warranted or not, due to the fact that VTubers are technically characters, and characters cannot be legally acknowledged as persons. Now, the sentence is true, however, it's also misleading, because if it's your brand, if it's your own IP, or even if it's a directed towards, say, Sora here, who is a brand, a face of the brand of Covercore and Hololive, under Japanese law, you can legally press against this and say that because of the slander that is coming our way, is being sent our way against our talent and or the character and the brand itself, we're being slandered. We're being defamed. And the entire proof of this is in the 2023, actually this is the 2024 quarterly report from CoverCore, and they have actually taken action against 116 different instances where defamatory acts were targeted and levied against their talent. And let me say that again. Okay, number of cases in which actions were taken against defamatory acts towards affiliated talent. 116, all right? And this was over one calendar year. So that comes out to roughly that's probably about roughly what 20 a month, 20 different cases. I mean, that is no small number when you're talking about actually taking action as a company legally against targeted defamation against your talent. Legal action, infringement of rights in online forums and social media. Legal action against harassment directed towards overseas talent. That means outside Japan. Legal action against aggregator websites. In June 2023, we released an additional joint statement announcing the formation of an anti-defamation study group in cooperation with Google, Notes, etc., and related experts. This is no small thing that is being completely discounted because, again, Mr. Esquire is only concentrating on one specific thing, that is he's sourcing from a third party, which may or may not have included all the information or even known said information. Okay, so there's a definite difference here. All right, let's move on just a little bit here.
So, by the way, criminal liability typically involves hurting somebody's reputation broadly. That's an Asian idea. It's like your public face, hurting your public face. That's criminal even. So there's both criminal and civil. On the other hand, you can bring a civil claim and you can claim damages on the individual's right to honor and say your honor has been infringed, and that's more likely to be successful. There was a case of defamation against a VTuber in 2023 where $8,000 were claimed in damages.
Okay, so two sentences later, he brings up this case where that a lawyer stated that there had been a case of defamation against a VTuber in 2023 where about $8,000 were claimed in damages. Okay, so if you are a VTuber and you have a charge levy against you, that basically shows that a VTuber is carrying the rights to be sued or have a case levied against you, as well as you as an entity in the VTuber are allowed the same rights as a regular person to levy an accusation and a charge against somebody who is defaming you. Okay, so this in itself is basically justifying what is exactly what we're talking about here, all right? So let's move on here. Next, let's go to the next clip.
Oh, sorry, Vietnamese dong, right? I always wonder how much an average person, or in this case, a VTuber, can live and work under an extremely strict and community prioritized and heavily hierarchical societies such as Japan. There are even a term, karoshi, death by overwork, which is concerning. Yes, and we're going to show later part of the idol culture. In fact, actually, you know what? I want to show it now. I'm going to show this video now. I was going to show it later, but I think now is a good time before I finish this. If you guys haven't seen this, this is a video of Minami Minagishi, and it's very sad, right? It's a little bit of trigger warning here, but this is she was the AKB48 pop star. So she was accused of having a boyfriend, right?
All right, and just for reference, we have talked about this specific thing before.
And I think she got caught with a guy, right? And like, if you saw what happened to her, right? Like this one right here with this episode. Right,
I'm sorry for making my band members, all the fans, the staff, and my family worry. I apologize to all of them.
So like contrition and like having contrition like that, shaving your head is a sign of contrition and sign of apology. Like that's big in Japan and it's intense. And there's parts of Japanese culture that I tell people, look, I love Japan. I love Korea. I love Japan. I love Thailand. But there are pros and cons to everywhere, right? And that is probably on the con side, right?
Okay, so he goes on here for a little bit and talks a little bit more about that. But the reason why I pulled out this particular part in his stream is that he completely skims over probably the most important reasoning behind the fact that she went out, she shaved her head, she publicly apologized, in person, in video form, in person, about what the situation was, where she was caught, with a guy, and so on and so forth, right? Now, he talks about contrition, which is an important thing, right? But the thing is that, and he completely misses probably the biggest point of this entire clip that he has, which is a perfect example of it, is that according to defamation laws in Japan, under the civil code, you can either do a public apology and or provide suitable monetary compensation if you defame a company, if you defame another person, all right? And so in order for this idol to seek forgiveness and restore the company's reputation, she went out in public and publicly apologized, and she shaved her head as signs of deep regret and sincere apology for what had happened. Otherwise, AKB48 would have had the right under civil code and civil law to prosecute her for defamation against AKB48, right? And this lawyer, Mr. Esquire, doesn't even touch the fact that there is a civil code that allows her to restore the reputation of AKB48 and herself, in fact, by going out in public and shaving her head, going out in public, and publicly apologizing. That's why when you see a lot of a lot of disciplinary action that is placed against specific VTubers, especially when they're part of an agency, they'll go out on social media and or even make those videos where they're completely black and they publicly apologize. Look at the Miko incident involving the BL manga that they were they were having fun with, and they made some off-putting comments about. She went out and publicly apologized while she was taking her brief hiatus in between there. Marine also did the same thing. There are specific reasons why they come out and they issue these apologies, because number one, if they cause controversy which is detrimental to the image and fame and the public face of a company, that's defamation of character. And a company can hold you liable in court for damages unless you go out and publicly apologize. And it's written into the code, and people like Mr. Esquire here, they look at it and say, "Oh, that's extreme. Oh, this is awful." I mean, just look at how pitiful she looks. Why are they degrading her? And the response to that is it gives her the ability to provide a measure of restoration, especially if someone like this idol that was part of AKB48, she wants to save her career, or she didn't leave AKB48. She got demoted to, I think, a different an offshoot branch, right? I think it was like HKT48 or something like that. But in order to stick with the company and accept your punishment or your the disciplinary action or what have you, and also avoid having to pay a monetary damage towards the company that you were working for or that you defamed. That's why they go out in public and do these things, because it's better to take a little bit of embarrassment than to be sued. And I believe that the punishment is up to 500,000 yen. A person who defames another by publicly alleging facts shall, regardless of whether or not the facts are true or false, be punished with penal servitude, which basically means that you are, put in jail. You're jailed. You're locked up, or imprisonment, not to exceed, or this also means community service, by the way, not to exceed 3 years, or a fine of not more than 500,000 yen. So, I mean, if somebody were to prosecute, whoever is defaming them, there is the real, punishment of either penal servitude or imprisonment. And there are specific articles that outline what penal servitude is. So it could be what we would call community service, or things of that nature, or imprisonment. And so that's why, again, you have idols that come out and do these public apologies, even if they are embarrassing, because it allows them the opportunity to not get punished in this severe of a situation, based solely upon what constitutes defamation and the repercussions if you are held to the charge of defamation in court. Now let's move on here. Hang on a second. Let's move on.
selling her tweets is now illegal in many countries. It can be. It can be. Impersonating somebody can be. However, the problem is that selling isn't a human. And that's exactly the law we're going to talk about right now for defamation. So pay attention to this, because this is exactly, so Lim, this law we're going to talk about is 100% going to apply here. So let's go to this law. Let me teach this law because I want to make sure that you understand how this applies. So this is a great article from Automation Media.
Okay, and that's the same article that we are currently looking at here. Hang on.
So online spaces are plagued by acts such as cyberbullying, which escalates into defamation. Thankfully, victims are able to defend themselves thanks to laws being in place for defamatory acts on social media. But what happens when a VTuber is on the receiving end? How the law of defamatory acts against VTubers has been gaining some attention from legal experts in Japan. So this is Japanese law. This is not Canadian.
And by the way, he's using, again, he is using an article, not the actual law, not the actual code. He is only basing his statements on an article that was compiled by a third party that may or may not even know what the legal code is. So, yeah.
Laws on American law. This is Japanese law specifically, right? So let's look at this. As opposed to influencers or celebrities, VTubers do not reveal their face or identity to the public and present themselves entirely as characters not existing in real life using a 2D or 3D avatar. They interact with their audience in character, right? Okay, thank you. Thank you for the explanation for us boomers out there. Recently, there have been more and more instances of VTubers experiencing slander. Honestly though, frankly, having just listened to a couple of streams, I think there actually is more slander than people would think. I think there's a lot of defamation.
Which there is, by the way, which there is. There is tons more defamation. Okay. Now, he never really gets to the point with this without doing a complete segue and then not actually talking about the point he's trying to teach here. So, unfortunately, it doesn't feel like Mr. Esquire actually even touches upon what he feels is going on. CJC, welcome to the chat. Hello. So let's again let's go back and look at this, because number one, again, and just in 2022, this doesn't include last year when other laws went into effect. Cover Core reported 116 cases where they took action against defamation acts against affiliated talents. Okay. Here's another thing here. Okay, this is actually from on a Japanese website that is talking about it's an institute of comparative law. All right, and this entire thing is extremely long, and I'm not going to go through the entirety of this. However, there is a second part here. Defamation and social media. The Japanese defamation laws protect two legal instances. All right. Let me say this again, okay? And this was published on March 13th. Okay, so this is newer than what he is using as a reference point, which is misinformed and out of date. Okay, defamation and social media. Japanese civil defamation law protects two instances, and they reference the court or the court case that brought this into, that tested it in court. Okay, an individual's social standing and a self-perceived sense of honor. Okay, let me say that again. Japanese civil defamation law protects two legal interests. I can't talk today. An individual's social standing and a self-perceived sense of honor. Okay. So Sakai Mayo covers statements that lower the plaintiff's social standings, and the other one protects their emotional interests. Okay, while the Japanese Civil Code explicitly lists honor as a non-economic interest, it does not set any rules regarding claims of defamation. As opposed, Article 230 of the Criminal Code, which regulates criminal defamation, requires the statement to be public. Okay, so if those things are said publicly under the criminal code, it has to be a public statement. Okay. So furthermore, Article 230-2 of the Criminal Code provides plaintiffs with certain defenses against defamation when statements were made public, or made for the public good, or refer to acts of public officials. Okay, now this spells out two different things. That number one, that the Civil Code does not list honor as a non-economic interest, and that it doesn't set any rules for public defamation. By contrast, the Criminal Code does. Okay, so essentially what this means is that in order to file suits against, say, like if you're filing suit against any color, it would have to be under the Criminal Code and not a civil case. Now, and according to the article that he was reading, this goes in direct contrast to the article that he was reading by this Amber V person, that says on the other hand, they comment, civil cases have a higher probability of being acknowledged. Claiming damages on the grounds of an individual's right to be infringed on is more likely to be successful. That is in direct contrast to what the actual law and code says, both for the criminal and for the civil part of defamation. So in other words, what the article he's referencing is wrong, and anybody that can read is wrong. They should see that it is wrong. Actually, there are one or two other lawyers or people with that seems to know about law, seems to get an interest. I hope so. I really do hope so, and I hope that they actually go to the actual code that is publicly available online, and actually read it. It's right here online. Okay, and we're gonna get to a part here where I want to explain something that they
outside of Japan. So, for example, in the case of Nijisanji, get wrecked, chatbot, get wrecked. In fact, I should play when the chatbot comes up.
Okay, let's go to the next part.
Including government, business, Nijisanji, and it is overseen by a commission, and they look at that information that's collected and make sure that that's distributed properly, including information that is shared. Shut up, chat. This is chat. This is like trying to sell me stuff over.
Okay, so the article that he's referring to here, and we'll go back just a little bit. He's referring to this article here that is posted on User-Centrics. Now, if we look at who User-Centrics are, they're not public. They're not a government entity, for one. And User-Centrics is a global leader in the field of consent management platform (CPM). They enable businesses to collect, manage, and document user consents on websites and apps. Okay, so this company is, I guess you could say, an authority on, personal information, and consent and everything. However, he's relying solely upon a resource article that was posted in their section. That doesn't mean that it's non-factual. However, the information that he is referencing is out of date, because this does not apply any of the current amendments that have gone into effect. Okay, so I just want to point that while he was reading, it is somewhat factual. That there's a lot of things that are completely missed on this document. Okay, now I'm going into this because another point that he completely misses with the actual law as it's written is Article 78, which is the obligation to disclose personal information an administrative entity holds. Okay, now it gets into pretty detailed information here that is very wordy, so it can be either hard to understand or even not make sense, because if there's one thing that the law does is they love their run-on sentences to add as much as they can within a single sentence to at least try to make the illusion it makes sense. But in summary, law Article 78 here states the obligation of companies like Anycolor to disclose information when it's requested. Now, as you get into this law, it goes into the concept and the process of disclosing information that has PPI or a person's private information that is not theirs. So say like you work for a company and something is going on and you require information about that situation which involves another person, and their private information is included in that personal information. The company is required to release that information to you upon request if there is a cause for harm to life, well-being, livelihood, or property of the person requesting the disclosure. That includes regardless of whether or not it constitutes somebody else's private information. Now, the law here does specify that you have to the company has to do their best to either exclude that information or censor it to the best of their ability before they disclose that information, such as a person's identifiable name, date of birth, and other identifiers or equivalent contained in that information. Okay, this is law. Okay, this is the actual law. Okay, this is not another document that was compiled by a third party and then released that, like what Mr. Esquire is, continuously references. This is actual law as written. All right. If you and maybe it's just a difference of opinion. However, if you're going to educate your audience on a specific thing, I would like that person to at least use the actual thing that they're trying to educate me on, and not somebody else's word and take that as gospel. Okay, you have any color was required to disclose information upon request. Now, if this grievance comes up, she puts forward this supposed legal document through her lawyer, and that comes up, and then your company launches an investigation, and she name drops, or she says specifically Ilra and Millie in that grievance, and they go and they question them, and they're like, wait a minute, we're being accused of bullying and hazing and harassment. I want to see the information. Like, all the company has to do is say, okay, sign on this dotted line that you are officially requesting information about this because you were specifically named. So long as the information has been they've made an attempt to either censor or again pseudonymize the information, they can see what that information is, because it specifically referenced them and it's relevant to them. End of story. That's what the law says. Now, again, any color is required to say, to at least try to censor or leave out that information, so long as it's not detrimental to what the relevant information is. But it would be the same as what like the U.S. government does when they publish classified information, but yet entire pages are black. That's basically what it amounts to. So I just want to make this extremely clear. There is rationale and reasoning behind this. If that information that she was threatening to release includes actual information of what another person's identity really is, including where they live, that falls under this law. They have an obligation by law to release that information to the other person to find out whether or not it's even true or not. And if they say, yeah, this is where I live, this is my real name, this stuff is all my information, they have an obligation, and it's covered by law. Now, there is a case to be made because of what the statute says and what has already been tested in court, that any color did do something taboo, or according to the personal protection of personal information, about talking about her health and well-being and all this stuff while they were making statements or trying to reach out to her, that kind of thing. However, you have to show intent that the information released is not about the character, but about the person themselves. You cannot talk about the person themselves in reference to health and well-being, but you can if it's in character. All right. Now that gets that's a slippery slope again, because like I've said before, they only talk about Celine with that name. They don't reference any other name. So she would have to prove and put the burden out. She has the burden of proof to say, yes, this is about me, the person. This was directed towards me, the person, because it was also a termination of contract to me, the person. But you have to be able to show the link between that statement and her contract termination. Because again, they never actually name her by person. They only use the name of the character. And any color could take that and say, we are referencing Celine, which we own because it's our IP. And she would have to say, okay, but you hired me to voice that person, that fictional person. And then you would have to prove that while you were under contract and they made these statements were made about you, the person, despite the fact that the termination notice lists the fictional character and not you specifically. So there's a lot of argumentative, back and forth that could be made about this entire situation. But again, you can't really argue about, Vox and Elera, seeing and Ike seeing these documents if they're name dropped and they requested that information from any color, because any color has protection under the law to release relevant information to people who request it if that information has the ability to affect harm to life, well-being, livelihood, or property. If there's potential damages that could be made if that information doesn't get given to them. Okay, so let's move on to the next soundbite here. Where is my window? There it is. Okay.
Much like the Canadian law. In fact, right here it says, the APPI is no artifact. Like Canada's Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act, PAPEDA, which came into effect in 2000, it has been overhauled multiple times and updated to reflect society and technology. It was updated in 2020.
This is why I am I'm being overly critical of Mr. Esquire, because the document he's using is at least a year out of date, if not more, because the Act on the Protection of Personal Information was updated in 2021 with parts of it still pending because of the date that those things went into effect, and the amendments of that act went into effect completely in 2023, and that is fact. You can go look that up, and you can find that on their website, on the government website, by the way, not just their website. Now, what I do want to say here as well is there was the article that he briefly mentioned that we can look at here, and this is being reported by this news agency here, where in Osaka, the Osaka District Court on August 31st, 2022, ordered an internet service provider to disclose information on an individual who defamed a virtual VTuber character. Okay, so the courts themselves, this goes back to the argument that he made earlier, that, you know, since VTubers are you know, he made the argument that VTubers are fictional characters, so, you know, it's hard to, you know, justify slander, you know, or defamation against them. Again, this has been tested in court as of 2022, and he's using out-of-date documents or people who don't know what they're talking about. Where the Osaka District Court, and this was, you know, this was tested in a district court, ordered an internet service provider to disclose information on an individual who defamed a YouTube character. And the presiding judge said a woman who posts videos on the internet as a VTuber okay, let me reread this. The presiding judge said a woman who posts videos on the internet as a VTuber, quote, acts wearing an image of an avatar as if it were a costume, unquote. Okay, so this court case here makes the judge here makes a case that when you are a VTuber, you are essentially acting in as the character. Okay, you are basically wearing a costume, and that's the only difference. It would be like somebody who's cosplaying. Therefore, libelous statements made against her computer-generated alter ego also libeled the woman. Okay, so this district judge here in Osaka basically made the case that if you're talking about a VTuber, you're talking about the person. If you slander a VTuber, you're slandering the person. Okay, so the case can then be made that regardless if you're a company or organization, if you defame the person, then you're defaming the avatar, then you're defaming the person themselves. Now, there could be the argument here, because this is a singular statement by a singular VTuber, that, and the article does not state whether or not the operator of the VTuber, you know, owned that character, or if she was representing her own brand or her own identity, or if this was part of an agency like Covercore or you know, Anycolor or anything else, where that would come into play, because then you start looking at what ownership is, right? And then you have to start looking at, okay, well, if you are a person who's working for an agency as a VTuber, you're going out there dressed up as a VTuber because you're employed by said agency. Does that agency then have the right to talk about the character and not talk about the person behind the character? You know, because if they're directing something directly be at the character, then they own the character, so there's no fault there. But if you direct something specifically at the operator or the person behind the character, then you're identifying that person. You're singling the person out. And this is where Dokibird would then have a case against Anycolor. But again, the burden of proof is to, take that information that is out there and say, okay, these statements were made against me, the person, and this in turn, defamed me because of statements that were released. And that information is also, since that information is about me, they're also talking about personal private information, which puts that law into effect. But she would have to make the case and prove it in court. All right. Now there is plenty of evidence for her to be able to come out and prove that in court, based upon what the back and forth was, and also what statements that were made, that they were specifically about her, the person, and she could definitely use that one video that talks where Illyra and Vox and Ike are talking, because the information that they are talking about, it was directed towards her and not the character. The only sticking point on that would be that Any Color could then argue that they only addressed the character by name, and since they own the name, then they own what they said, and they can talk about that character any way they want. So there are arguments that can be made on both sides with this. Okay. Okay, so if we go back to this article here, which is from the Institute of Comparative Law. In addition, courts have developed 3 defenses against defamation claims. The first one, usually translated as the defense truth, was recognized in 1966 and is available to all defendants. However, it differs from common and continental law in the fact that they are not absolute. Instead, the defendant's comments must be true and also benefit the public good. The second defense is known as the fair comment defense and bars liability when the plaintiff is a public figure and the comments refer to the public interest. Lastly, the counter-speech defense protects defendants when their words are used in response and are proportionate to the plaintiff's statement. Okay, so these defenses here, these 3 defenses here that they talk about specifically, have also been tested in court and can be adopted for whatever Any Color has as a defense. Which makes it very hard for somebody to advocate and hey, how's it going? Welcome to the chat. This makes it more difficult for the prosecutor, right? In 2003, the Supreme Court adopted general public doctrine to include website users, creating the ordinary user doctrine, even though it originally referred to website browsers. Courts currently use it to refer to social media users. Social media services such as Twitter pose a challenge for traditional defamation laws. On one hand, courts have repeatedly found that tweets can be defamatory. However, they are, divided opinions regarding some functions such as likes and retweets. For example, in 2014, courts in 2014 have found that liking a tweet was a mere expression of support and thus did not meet the criteria of defamation. See, and this is where it gets really, really sticky, because what has transpired in many cases is people automatically assuming that because of the medium that is being used, it's automatically defamation, and they're also basing it upon court cases that have taken place in the United States and or in Western courts. With that being said, the courts here the courts here, the Supreme Courts here, have found that liking a tweet was a mere expression of support and did not meet the criteria of defamation. I mean, that would be like, some terrorist group going out and making a post, and then a public figure liking said post or even retweeting it. It doesn't meet the criteria of defamation. Even if those like, say, like with the current back and forth that's happening in the Middle East, you have one party on one side, you have a party social state on the other side, and that first party is making disparaging comments against that state, and you go off and like that post. It's like, well, you're supporting the defamation of a country or a state or whatever, and you liked it, so you're equally responsible for supporting that defamation. Well, according to their criteria, it doesn't necessarily match up with that. Hey, welcome to the chat. Thank you for dropping in. Thank you. Okay, so let's rewind here just a little bit. Moist Critical and Armstrong Gold, who happens to be the Jesus of the East and West of the internet, viewed the Doki drama and will likely watch more of The Attorney. How far will this reach, I wonder? Well, and here's the thing, so Legal Matters brought this into the circle of people who do law on the internet, and then talk about these things. There was a mention in his super chats about what asking him whether or not he would review the all the information that has happened with Mafu and Miki Nico, and he said there's a lot of it, he wasn't aware of it, but when he started looking into it, there's a lot of it, and he doesn't know how much he can dedicate time to dive into that, but he said he'd look at it. So I mean, this has far-reaching implications, though, because people who are promoting his videos and and him coming out, it's so weird, because when you watch his videos, he states in his comment section that this is not legal advice, he's not taking a position on it, so on and so forth, but yet he clearly is. And the positions that he's taking are based upon articles that other people read that are either suspect in accuracy or are out of date. I mean, he never even touched upon the fact that that there are 3 defenses of defamation claims in the Japanese court here. He never touches that. He never once brings up any of the sites, any site that actually has the actual laws that he is supposedly trying to teach his audience. And that's the hardest part that I just can't grasp or understand. He actually used some of the things I sent him by email, but he's never even replied to me, or he never even thanked me for that matter. But I mean, I have sent, I've sent 2 different emails, talking about the bullet points that I wanted to discuss with him, and I included actual substance in links and websites of the things I was trying to bring to his attention. I mean, I don't know what more he wants, unless he's like, I don't want to deal with you because you only have 700 subscribers and you have to have 100,000 in order to, be able to talk to me, or what his thing is. But there are actual parts of this law that are actually out there that are there for public consumption, and he never even uses it. I don't know if it's because he doesn't know, if his Google foo is not strong. I don't know, but I mean, he never even brings up, or shows what is, archived by the Library of Congress of what actual defamation in Japan is, and the corresponding articles that address that law. I mean, if you're not going to actually show, your listeners or your watchers or your viewers, what the actual law states, and you're only going to go by, whoever wrote this article here, Yami, in this case, I would take this under advisement a little bit more, because this is an actual reputable website. But yeah, I mean, he comes along and shows articles from Animation West, this Amber V person, I mean, who's Amber V? She's the editor-in-chief of the website, okay, but what's her knowledge of actual Japanese law? She never even once references anything in here other than other websites that may or may not be reputable. I mean, it's right here. I don't know what else to what else to say about this, and I don't understand why Mr. Esquire doesn't go and actually talk about these things and pull up at what actually websites that are in Japan that are written in English for us to understand what they actually say. Let's see. What else did you say, CJC? All right, it said be a lawyer, but mostly expertise in firearms, and might also analyze it. Yeah, I mean, there is a big how to do about this entire thing, right? And we've talked about it in past streams where, with everything that has happened, that you likely would need to try to press this in Japanese court, and as opposed to what is trying to push it in in Canadian court. Somebody also made the comment that they can just she could file it in Canadian court and ask for the Japanese court to extradite the the charges or whatever. However, the way that the law is written, the law is written in a way where complaints from external courts is secondary, and you would have to they would pursue you would have to pursue charges in Japan, specifically because they don't have an obligation to chase after these things in a foreign court. So, and the other thing is, you can pursue an argument in Canadian court and win the case. All right, but even if you win the case and you tell the Japanese judicial system that they need to apply this law to Nijisanji in any color, they could take that ruling to court and then get the sentence reduced. Or they can even get dismissed. Even if Canadian court takes, says, yes, you're responsible for this, and we're fining you, $100,000 US or Canadian or whatever, right? That ruling then gets passed down to the judicial system in Japan, and they could then turn around and say, file for, well, based upon our laws, this is, we would like to get this sentence reduced. Now, there is also an argument here, and let me find one here. Find it here. And this goes specifically in Dokibird's favor, that in Article 230, a person who defames another by publicly alleging facts shall, regardless of whether or not facts are true or false, be punished by the penal servitude, with penal servitude or imprisonment not to exceed 3 years, or fined 500,000 yen. So she could make that argument, but. And here's the big thing. Even if she makes that argument, any color has something that they can use in their defense, especially if it comes to them pressing against. With a Canadian court, that in Japanese law under Article 38, and Article 38 states an act committed with no intent to commit a crime shall not be punished. However, this does not apply to where special provisions are, and those provisions largely include government officials. Okay, Article 38. Let me pull this up on the screen here. Let's see. This is. I hate the way this is structured here. Business. Okay, let me just. All right, that's right. This was I translated this because it was right here. Yeah, it's this section here. So, in Article 38, intention with an act committed with no intent to commit a crime shall be punished. However, this shall not apply where special provisions of the law. Part 2, a person who has committed an act that should have constituted a serious crime but was ignorant of the fact that the act constituted a serious crime at the time shall not be punished for that serious crime. Okay? So this is basically their out. You know, if you press charges like in Canada, and then you try to apply, you know, what Canadian law is to a foreign entity, you know, you cannot compel the country's judicial system in Japan to pursue help with extraditing this case, because according to part 2 here of Japanese law, Article 38, under intention, if you're ignorant of you know, that it was a serious crime, you're not going to get punished for it. You shouldn't be punished for it. You know, even if a person did not know the law, it cannot be assumed that he did not intend to commit the crime. However, the sentence may be reduced according to circumstances. So basically, you know, I mean, if the law is serious enough, then they can at least bring that into court. But even then, you know, the sentence may be reduced according to circumstances. So if if they're ignorant against it, you know, they might not even be charged against it, even if you go and say, hey, this was illegal in Canada. So I mean, there are so many different things that are encompassed in this situation that Legal Matters either did not have the time to talk about or were completely skimmed over. And it largely has to do with, in my opinion, the fact that he leans heavily against Nijisanji, and according to what seems to be his MO, he is more of an attorney that goes after big companies as opposed to looking at what, you know, the legal defense might be for said company, and to balance out what he's saying against them. You see what I'm saying? It seems that this is becoming a common topic or attention to foreign YouTuber lawyers. Yeah, I think so too. I think that they're finally catching the tailwind on this, and that's why you'll likely see more people talk about it. Now, I am not you know, trying to state that Dokibird does not have a case, because, you know, Mr. Esquire over at Legal Matters, I mean, he has been trying to make a case on her behalf for days now. I mean, he's was even promoting her her charity that she had founded or created or whatever. So I mean, he's actively shilling for her, you know, as somebody speaking out on her behalf, which I find extremely odd when he, you know, he has a disclaimer in his chat or his description that this is not legal advice. I don't give legal advice. Yet he gave legal advice to Dokibird, you know, and he told her, yeah, you need to get lawyers in Japan, blah blah blah. I mean, he's giving legal advice. That's giving legal advice as somebody who is a public entity. So I mean, he already goes against that. So I mean, he has been leaning heavily towards her, which is why me looking at trying to stay objective with this is bringing up the other side of the story, you know, more than anything, because yeah, they are a company, they're a corporation, they're making big money off of, you know, the VTuber industry, so on and so forth, but that doesn't mean that they don't have a defense, and that also doesn't mean that we should expect, you know, a positive outcome for Dokibird, because there are so many different things. I mean, they can use that part of the code of the criminal code to say this is common in our industry. This is common in the way that we disclose termination notices. This is common to address the public interest when it comes, see, and that's where that comes in again, you know. they can claim that it was in the public interest to disclose what was happening with Celine and why she was on hiatus and why they're terminating her and the justification for it. I mean, there are so many different parts of this that he does not cover because it blows a case against Niji completely out of the water. Let's see here. What else? Oh yeah, also Doki has a good manager called Mr. Mam. He used to be manager of. Oh really? Oh wow. That is very interesting. I wonder. I wonder if she took on that manager before or after. Did Doki have that manager while she was working for Niji, or did she take him on after? If any color decides to sue Doki, they have to pay a lot of money to get the best lawyer they can afford, and which I doubt they would. They can't even hire a full manager job. Well, I will say with respect to that management job that was posted was I mean it's more for an assistant to the manager, so I don't know if that's kind of like like your like your typical like handyman type person or what, but if they have pursued as many cases in court as Cover Court has pursued, and Cover Court in 1 year pursued 116 different legal actions against people who slandered talent in their company. I would hope or suspect that the guy that the CEO that runs Anycolor would have a legal team that is just as active. At least I would hope so. But yeah, they would and here's the other thing too. Anycolor may very well have lawyers on on retainer fees. So if a situation comes up, they could just since they have lawyers on standby, they could say here's the case, go at it. And we also have to remember that Japan as a whole takes online slander and defamation, especially in social media, extremely seriously. And they have been enacting more and more stricter measures to try to control defamation and what's the other word I'm looking for? Defamation and and libel and everything else. And there have been more and more court cases that have tested the fact that things that are posted on social media can be used against you, even if you're using an alias. That doesn't mean that Anycolor is off the hook. That also includes companies and corporations and other things. Now here's the other thing that that people have been also bringing up. They have been bringing up the fact that they've been bringing up the fact, well, Anycolor was posting on her on her Twitter account, as Celine, and that's wrong because you're impersonating another person. Not really. Okay, not really, because people don't get that the accounts that are specific to names that are owned by Anycolor do not belong to the talent. And again, as this court case in Osaka even even states, Where are you? Did I close it? No, that's not it. This court case in Osaka actually spells out that here it is. This court case in Osaka spells out by the presiding judge that when you are posting videos as a VTuber on the internet, it's like the person acts wearing an image of an avatar as instead of a costume. Okay, now when you're doing that and you're dressed up as so and so, you're basically personifying that person. That's why another person can fill in that role and post as Celine, because you are acting as that character and you're in that costume. That's not a real person. It's owned by AnyColor. That's why AnyColor has access to any other social media account for IPs that they own. And Doki Bird does not own Celine. She was basically acting in a costume, and that Twitter or X account is owned and controlled by AnyColor, so they can say whatever the hell they want. That's why termination notices can be posted on talent's Twitter or X account, because they're not putting those termination notices up. Those termination notices are being put up by the company. So if you want to make that precedent, then every single talent that had ever been terminated, they could claim libel against them or claim that they were impersonating them online or whatever. When they didn't actually control the character. Now, if someone were to go on my account and then try to impersonate me, that would be a different story, because then those people, since my IP is independent and unaffiliated, I could claim libel against them, especially if they're saying things that aren't true. But when it comes to corporately run social media accounts that are owned, and the IP is owned by a different company, you can't make that same argument. Doki, that's like dealing with PewDiePie's manager. Oh God. I can't stand that guy, so I would be able. I don't think I'd be able to stand his manager either, because I picture PewDiePie's manager as like the quintessential guy that has a toothpick in his mouth that's flipping a coin while scrolling through his phone, just trying to find the next deal that he wants to make, or waiting for a phone call, or answering texts and emails on his phone, that has that greased back hair, and as likely when she was winning a lot in Apex Legends tourneys. She's a pro gamer. Yeah. That's very possible. I wonder if that's when she first met him, because she's really good at Apex. But what needs to be taken away from this is that there is enough evidence on both sides, right, that I believe they would be able to make a case on either side, and it would be more of a stalemate than anything else. I mean, even the internet provider made arguments in this case that that it may not have been aimed at the avatar, but at the woman, and you have to be extremely careful when trying to push these types of lawsuits, because there's a difference between using a person's stage name and directing comments towards the stage name, and then directing comments towards the woman or the person, and or even making statements about the person behind the avatar publicly. So you really have to be able to look at what was being said and what had been done, and see whether or not you have a case. I think it's personally shaky, and it continues to be shaky, purely because, if you go into the code here about using and disclosing that information to third parties, there are so many places here that just in this law alone, and this doesn't even begin to touch the criminal code or the civil code. I mean, this is a law into itself. They have obligations to not just Doki Bird, not just Doki Bird to protect her, but also protect her dad. They also have the obligation to the other livers there, when it comes to the potential of their personal information being leaked to other outside of the company. I mean, they have that obligation. And there's data here. I mean, there are laws here that specifically talk about what the disclosure is and what can be said. Now, just because they disclose information that may have sensitive data about another person, doesn't mean that person can then just run off and share that data. I think that's why things were worded as the way that they were when they were being addressed by the talent over at Nijisanji, because they were trying to protect what actually happened, even though she went out and disclosed it late. I don't know if it was later or before that, but I think it was later after that. They still have that obligation of protecting that private data, but that does not mean that Nijisanji and Any Color broke any rules with their disclosure. I'm really thinking of it and realize Any Color can't get into a court case. What if the other livers leave too? It's better for them to hire good managers and help livers out yes, exactly. Well, I believe honestly that there has been a gross negligence in regards to management for Any Color, where they need to turn around and look and say, okay, we need to manage our talent better. We need to be more connected with them. We need to have more meetings and evaluations with them, especially if there are problems that are occurring, and talent are being compelled to act, as leaders, or in management roles, like the accusation states that the people in the EN brand were just power hungry and controlling everything, and they had the final say, and they dictated what happened. There needs to be a complete evaluation from management down in order to refine processes and have a better handle on what is happening with the talent. So if you look at Nijisanji and this situation and you compare it to their rival Cover Corps. Cover Corps seems that know exactly what they're doing and how they're doing it with their talent. Now, you still have people that have been terminated, like Mel and Rushia and so on and so forth. However, they still seem to take those situations seriously, and then they go back and they look at the process and they try to refine it along with either more rules or guidelines or explanations on what can and can't be done. Now, if the accusations are accurate about her history of being disciplined within Nijisanji, that in itself needs to be looked at, because obviously whatever the process was of handling disciplinary actions did not work, and things continued to happen for years anyways. So if you can't have one person constantly breaking rules for 3 years and then kick them out, because they're basically thinking in their mind, this may be against what they told me, but I'm gonna go do it anyways. The worst they can do is say no, and they really do need to take the time and effort to try to realize what baggage they may be bringing in with the talent that they're hiring, because the Rushia incident and this incident here with Doki Bird, and a couple other incidents along the way, all scream that there is some these companies have been hiring people that have mental conditions that adversely affect their judgment when it comes to actually performing or speaking on behalf of the company, or just their employment status in general. I know in many aspects you cannot use that as the sole reason, them trying to be equal opportunity employers, so to speak. However, if those situations prevent them from fulfilling their job as a liver, you really have to look and say, okay, is there somebody different that is better qualified, that that doesn't have that kind of baggage? I mean, it still blows my mind that people can do a deep dive on livers and other VTubers and find all sorts of things about them, and those companies still hire them, and they seem to be ignorant of that past, or they don't look at that past. And with this being a Japanese company, of course, the rules over in Japan for employment are drastically different than the West. So, I mean, I just have this feeling that the time isn't being taken out to hire qualities, specific qualities in people that fit the mold of what they're trying to build. It feels like they're Any Color is trying to be like Hololive, but they don't want to put the effort into it, or hire the right people to craft that into something that they're spending all this money on. I think the number is close to 50% of their revenue now is going straight into Nijisanji. Whereas if you look at Hololive, I believe theirs is like at 38%. I mean, they've been able to streamline their companies so well and keep their employees happy and paid that they're only spending 38% of their total revenue on operating costs. I mean, that in itself is significant. I mean, that tells you the difference between one company and the other, about how one company is being ran and the other one is, But and why I bring this up why I keep coming back to this one document, it's fairly simple. I mean, like Beaver said, you really don't want to take this to court. Either one, no one's gonna win if they take it to court, unless you're looking for clout and saying, yeah, I won over Nijisanji. But at the same time, I mean, is it worth trying to chase that monetary compensation, or if everyone just kind of apologizes and moves on? I would rather tell both of them, just apologize and move on. Because I mean, I even told who was it? Oh yeah, there was a comment on one of my videos where they said that they would just do it over in Japan, or they should, something to that effect. And I mean, in the last like 5 days or something like that, Doki Bird has already pulled in a significant amount of money to her channel, and it these are public analytics. So if you pull that kind of money into in just 5 days, yeah, right. So yeah, Dark Lighter says all she needs to do is move to Japan, and she can claim that she doesn't have the monetary needs to travel and fight this case. All right. The public analytics showed that in just a matter of, like, I think it was like a week or two, she had already amassed 51,354 in 9 days. I mean, nine days and you make 50,000. I think that she would be able to afford taking a case to Japan. But yeah, they definitely need better managers and add more people with experience handling VTubers and their staff. What was the average? There's like they likely have between 10 and 20, hopefully 10 to 20 managers. And if they don't, they need to. The average amount of staff per VTuber ratio kind of needs to be higher than what it currently is. It just makes sense. If the type of support you're promoting and pushing right now is not adequate, it's either because your staff is not qualified to handle these things, or they don't know how to properly handle them, or you need to provide them better assistance. And that would include hiring assistants that know what they're doing and how to manage things and how to properly get things done in an expedient manner. Because honestly, this whole situation could be better. It could have ended better had Nijisanji managed this talent better. Because this talent obviously has acted out over the last 3 years. And when you have a talent that is this acting like this, where they are constantly challenging authority because they want to do it their own way, you can't just say no, don't do that, and walk off. Especially after the first time and the second time and the third time, you can't do that. You can't do this. And if she is showing signs of not complying with her position, You know, you can't let it go for 3 years and then do something. If they can't act, activity, okay. It can't, if they can't do that, at least reduce the amount of activity their talent do, or at least make them choose. Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too. You know, there needs to be better time management. There needs to be better, communication and clearing activities in a timely manner that that they want to have scheduled. There was an incident where she did not. She wanted to do an Apex tournament, right? um, you know, the talent and management need to look at this and say, okay, if you're going to do an Apex tournament, we need to schedule this so we manage it correctly. Because they, in the back, they don't just have the talent trying to run everything. They have the manager or whoever is part of her support team is also working with her to be able to put on this tournament. Yeah, you can do the tournament on your own. It takes a lot more effort too, right? But in many ways, if you are hosting a tournament with other people, you're essentially representing Nijisanji when you host that tournament. It's not just Celine, it's not just Dokibird, it's also Nijisanji. So you need to work that out between yourself and management in order to actually run the tournament. And a lot of people and Mr. Esquire especially, they're making comments as if Dokibird were an individual VTuber unto herself. All right, and let me say this again. They are making comments that Dokibird, it was an independent VTuber unto herself when she was Celine, when she was affiliated and owned and operated and property of any color. So the rules are going to be different as opposed to like what she is now, where she is Dokibird making these comments about any color. When you are Dokibird making comments about any color, you can go back to this article here. Oh, not this article. This one here that Mr. Esquire used as a reference point, and you can say, well, she needs to be careful about what she is saying, because that, as it states here, however, VTubers are characters whose real identities are not publicly known. Not that one. This one here. The lawyer mentions that there has been a case of defamation against a VTuber where $8,000 were claimed in damages. Now it doesn't state who made those defamation comments. However, I mean it's been tested in court on a singular on an individual operator level, according to this document. It doesn't state that an agency was held liable for or somebody working for another agency was working punished like this. But as Dokibird, she needs to be careful about it because she's no longer employed with that company. And so they could take legal action against her and say, look, she's making these comments. Look how much her popularity has skyrocketed. How much all this stuff was, she made 50 grand in 9 days. And she's cost us money. now she has to be careful about, you know, retaliation like that. For example, look at Hololive. They're not only YouTube streamers, but literal idols. They don't just stream to YouTube. They play games. They actually have dance and singing practice. Yes, they do. Now, their process is different than what Niji is, and Niji actually shows their process here. All right, this is their again. This is their quarterly report from their latest quarterly report. Okay, so this is their this is what they call their comprehensive support system for VTubers. They have in-house production team to consider worldview, illustrations, and other VTuber concepts. They have talent apply, and then they send them to VTA, which is their VTuber Academy. And there's a note down here. At this time, only Nijisanji Japan is implementing the program. Okay, so this support was not made available to their EN branch, and their CEO that recently did that video. He mentioned in his video that they have been looking at releasing this part of their support system for EN. They've been reevaluating, the fact that this support has not been there, and they're trying to find ways to implement this part of their support system to English-speaking VTubers that they hire, right? But this right here is one of the big things that is missing right now in their support system. Live streaming tools for streamers support various live streaming, including 2D and high quality 3D, and then make their debut. So what they are essentially saying is that they have this system in place, but it's only been focused on JP and not EN. But they have continued to hire people in EN without first implementing this portion here, which I think is extremely important, because if they are going to basically academize their new hires, they need to be able to promote from the onset what their workflow process is, so they understand this is how it needs, how you need to do things now that you're employed with us. And they have to be able to, educate their VTubers and their new hires. This is the workflow. This is the way it's supposed to be. This is how when we work on these types of things, or that you want to work on these types of things, this is how you submit to us and get approvals for it. Because if this is correct, Celine was not at fault. It wasn't necessarily at fault for doing things her own way. She may have, since this education system isn't even implemented for EN, they haven't been given the opportunity to say, okay, this is how it's supposed to go. This is what we were taught. So this is how things need to be in order for me to work for this company. I mean, that's basically what it is. Marko, correct me if I'm wrong, because I started VTuber a month before Russia termination, and only got interested in Hololive because Roberto Clips. Hololive is a VTuber idol company, while Niji is a VTuber company. There is a difference in company activity. So the way the story goes is when Yago basically, he started Cover Corporation with 2 other people, and their intent was to bring to YouTube an idol group like AKB48. And that's where the famous meme comes from. He wanted to create a virtual environment with idols on par with what AKB48 is. After he started, he hired Roboko, Miko, Azuki, all the Generation Zero ladies. That's what he had in mind. But then, of course, COVID hit, right? But as he started adding other VTubers and the generation started getting hired, because of COVID, the situation drastically changed, and it became a lot more of a let's play channel kind of VTuber thing. And that's one of the reasons why VTubers doing let's plays became so popular. Because you had Corona, and you had Miko, and you had all the other ones out there essentially doing their what their memes ended up being, because they were doing a lot of let's play. But the idea was always to craft them around the idol concept of being a virtual idol. And as COVID came and went, and they started dropping the restrictions and the quarantines and all the other things, Yago and the board of directors have come out and said that they are no longer going to be trying to focus on the live live streams that are extremely long, and that he wanted to dial back those the amount of time that they are live streaming to between like 3 to or I think it was 2 to 5 hours, something like that. But the average is about 3 hours. That's why after games like Elden Ring and all those big games that came out, we started seeing them play less and playing games that they can finish within a couple hours, because that's the way that Yaga wanted to shift. And that shift, like you said, also includes them doing more idol type stuff like voice lessons, voice acting, dance class, preparing choreography for different virtual shows, that kind of thing. Recording also, they've been putting up a lot more content where they have been recording the Hololive girls, and then putting those online. So I mean, all that stuff has been coming about, right? And I believe with any color is kind of a blur for me, because I did not start following anything that was happening in Niji until like the last year or so. But it seems like Niji saw the advent of VTubers coming about, and so their idea was to bring VTubers to the forefront by hiring as many VTubers as you can possibly get, like you can see on the screen here. But the CEO wanted to specialize in data media and the media industry, and they have been seeing this transition of going from anime and everything else to live streaming to VTubers. And then they still haven't let the term metaverse die yet, so you keep seeing that referenced. But and according to their vision, they have a vision of a new magical experience, next entertainment factory. That they want to use technology to change entertainment. And one of the big lines that they use here, we will continue to deliver more free, more diverse, and more detailed content, and that they want to aim to deliver a magical experience. What follows is a new entertainment economical zone. the way people live and work will change dramatically, and they feel that, VTubers, and VR and everything else is going to play a big part of it. So, but that does not mean that they are going into this as idols. All right. Because who is a VTuber? Who is a virtual VTuber? They believe that they're not an anime character. All right. That they are not, that they're not idols, and they're not a YouTuber. And that's where they get, the V-liver aspect of their, call sign type thing. Even though they continue to reference VTuber in their material, because this is a term that everyone knows when they get into this, but their idea is to, break in beyond them having a anime styled character that isn't an idol and is more than just a regular YouTuber, and this is what they are claiming they want to build. No idea who's in EGJP. Have any idea? But a guy at height of a grizzly bear, Pamu girls over, fangirls over there, because the dude also is a medic. Yeah, well, and that's, excuse me, and that's kind of why, like, I don't follow a lot of people, hardly anybody in Niji, because they have not been able to bring me in to the level of, say, familiarity, of looking at them like, hey, that's somebody I'd like to get to know, or somebody I'd like to support. Despite having so much talent in their, under their influence in their house, there just has not been enough likability within this. And I think a large part of this has to do with the fact that, that their planning of trying to get, from new hire to, debut, I just don't think that they have enough support there for them to be capable of crafting what they want with the English branch. It just feels like there is a lot lacking within that English branch in the way of support. And the people that they hire have already, worked by themselves to get to where they are. So they look at it and say, okay, I have these people I need to report to, but everything else I'm going to do myself, like I always have been. I mean, that's kind of the way it feels like. What has I asked cleared some of it, making it clear to me how talent are have more compressed schedule than Niji. Well, and it does feel that way, because a lot of, I mean, even a lot of the girls in EN, or not EN, but the JP branch in Hololive, that they still work another job. They still work a completely different job. Like Karoni still helps, do and does work for her parents. They have some kind of like bakery type thing, I believe. And several other ones of them also hold down secondary jobs, in addition to their idol thing. And a lot of those jobs don't include being anything to do with VTubing or internet or anything else. But there is a larger structure, as far as their environment goes for Hololive, where it allows them to, it's a environment for people who are in VTubing, to take that next step into the entertainment world. And that's basically where it's leading to. Both of them want to try to get into that entertainment sphere. But Hololive has had a clear vision with people who have carefully planned out what they're trying to do, and look at each step and then try to refine what each step was. I mean, if you look at the EN branch, I mean, a lot of them had streaming experience, but not all of them, had singing experience or acting experience or anything else, and they had to try to pick that up fast. I mean, if you look at the EM branch, Hololive Myth had to turn around and literally, learn and speak Japanese in the 2 years that they had before, I believe, console came along. And even the girls and the console, they did not necessarily, have the skills to do a Japanese conversation. And and several of them said that they had to turn around and cram learning Japanese because they started using that as a mandate in order to work for Cover Core in their auditions. You had to speak Japanese on a professional level in order for them to seriously consider you, because that is the corporate language where they're based at. So I think there's also that aspect as well with Nijisanji, where they don't have that level of communication back and forth, which holds everything up. Because you said something in Japanese, you have to be able to read it. If you throw it through a deep L or whatever, and then you can try to construct the sentence in return. It took me about a year of learning Japanese as a whole, just a concept, in order for me to start thinking of how I'm going to structure my sentences in English, so I can ensure that when it comes out in Japanese, it means exactly what I'm trying to say. I mean, if you have, Kei-san and a few other people, they always made fun of the people, like, they're saying, how many of you are using a translator, and people would say something in Japanese, and they're like, yeah, I can automatically tell that's machine language. And it's because the way people, in the English language think, they don't know how to construct sentences that would sound, either casually or professionally in Japanese. So and a lot of times that when you type it into like Google Translate or even DeepL, it'll say something completely different than what you're trying to say because of the way you structure your sentence. Yeah, Kiara's like she also did that too. You gotta respect Iago and Hololive EN with Myth. There's like manager, Myth, and I don't know if the way things are made, whether or not those managers, I believe the managers were assigned to them upon being hired, which extremely helps. I don't know how I don't know how their contracts are signed where you can bring in your own manager, or they have to be somebody that's already on staff or hired by Hololive. And I can't I haven't been able to get Fuamoko's old manager to tell me whether or not she is still with them, but I have the feeling that she's not. But I mean, because they had a good manager as well. But yeah, I mean, they may have been given a whole different manager once they got hired with Hololive, but she won't tell me. She won't. But it came to Hololive Myth. Callie has a manager. She had one, yeah. And Kiara Amegura. Yeah, yeah, and that's the good thing is it felt like they had managers that got back to him in a timely manner. Um, we know of I think like 3 or 4 people that are employed by Niji that have been referenced or mentioned, but largely I haven't seen anything that says that they how many people their managers have per person, or even hear talent talk about their managers as a whole. Yep, almost no managers of whole life. Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of managers that that are in public that have a public presence. I mean, look at Achan. I mean, she has gone from manager to be absolutely adored and streaming semi regularly, or at least on a regular basis. Um, they just have that kind of presence out there, and um, Nijisanji feels a lot more sterile when it comes to their talent. And what I mean by sterile, it feels so by the numbers, where they go through and everything is corporate, everything is handled in a corporate fashion. There's no intimacy between talent and managers or talent and other staff. It just feels so very by the numbers, and I think that's the part where there is a person at the head of this thing, and he likely has an idea of what he wants to do, but the way that it's implemented is completely different than what Yago's done. And that's not to, I mean, that's not to say that this guy is bad either. It just feels like it's handled differently. I mean, the CEO that talked about this incident a few days ago. I mean, that was my first time actually seeing. And I was like, "Who is this guy?" I mean, he looks so by the numbers with his suit, because it looked like he was going to go to a funeral or something. I was like, what is this? It definitely doesn't look like Yago. I mean, he looks casual, and and it's a completely different presentation. Uh, so anyways, I'm going to keep this short because I am still going to stream later on today about and give Enshrouded a try. But I wanted to at least also just a heads up. I'm battling an inner ear infection again. So if I do cancel tonight's stream, please just kind of like give you guys a heads up if I don't feel up to doing it. But I'm currently on treatment, so hopefully I'll feel up to it. Because I'd really like to try the game and just kind of hang out. And then tomorrow I do have scheduled Doki Doki because I wanted to try to take the next character route in that game. So we'll see though. But I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because I watched his stream, and some of it I kept asking, where are you getting this information from? Because it doesn't gel with what is actually in the law, in the rule book for this situation. But and for me, I'm very much played out on this topic as well. So I mean, unless something like really big comes along, to that I want to talk about, I mean, I'm not even gonna really watch what he has to say because a lot of it seems like he says, yeah, this is Eastern law style, but he keeps talking in a Western mindset, and it's like, go read the law over on the other side first. Like, please look at their law and actually read the articles within said law and what the provisions are, and don't use websites from third parties that may or may not be current, because defamation laws and internet and social media slander laws have been put in effect for since 2023, and more laws are on the way. Some of them started at the beginning of this year, and you really need to like read what those are and not just base it upon your past experience, especially when it doesn't apply to Japanese law. But anyways. All right, guys, thank you so much for dropping in and being with me. All you lurkers, definitely thank you for dropping in. He might get some drama when he collabs with the oh god, see, and that's what just drives me nuts about him. Okay, because I mean he's bringing these people on who just they're doing it for the sake of drama, and they're doing it for the sake of getting more views and likes. That's all they're doing it for. But yet he mocks people like me who come along and actually show what the law says in detail from Japanese sources, including and the Library of Congress. But he mocks me for, quote unquote, riding on his coattails. It's like, I'm just a guy that's out here that, sees something happening, and I have the Google foo to be able to go out and actually find what the law actually says about it. And, there's a drastic difference between me and some person that stirs up as much drama as they can in order to get likes and views. I mean, I have 5 people sitting in my chat right now. About 5 people watching, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I never do this for the likes or for the views or for to get popular or get the crud, or have the flex on other people. I don't do that. I mean, if I talk to 5 people, or if I talk to 50 or 500 or 0, I do it because I see something that's happening, and I want to be able to give others the correct insight on what it is people are talking about. That way they aren't going out and speculating on other things, And most importantly, I go out and make sure that I bring forward the credible, accurate information that is relevant to this, and not just solely rely on another party to go out and source my own, the details I want to talk about. I mean, I go do the work, and the biggest thing is, I do the work. And I was talking about this I was talking about this whole thing before he even touched it. So don't at me on this, man. I mean, seriously. Don't sit there and criticize people like me that are actually going out and actually looking at what the actual law is. No, he won't collaborate with me, because I will actually throw this out there and say, look, you are a lawyer, correct? You are a lawyer or an attorney, and you're saying this when Japanese law says this. Explain. And this is not me. I don't want to collaborate with him and get confrontational, but I do want to go out there and say, look, you have been saying all these things. This is what the Japanese law actually says in translation from reputable sources that are not a third party. This is what it actually says. This applies to the situation, does it not? I mean, I would actually tell them that. I mean, that there are pseudonym laws on record about protecting private information that are relevant to this case. He barely touches it. I mean, he cannot even take the time to go to the Library of Congress and pull up the actual Japanese law of defamation. He goes to a third-party website that kind of talks about it. I mean, there's a big difference between what I do and what he does. I actually show him, divulge what the sources that I use. I mean, there's a huge difference. But I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to sit here and have shade thrown at me when it's not deserved. I mean, I've been talking about this type of stuff for years, 3 years before he even touched it. The only difference between me and him is that he went to law school, and I went to college, but yet I take the time to actually read what I'm going to talk about before I talk about it, and find the accurate current laws that are on the book. But hey, I mean, I kind of expected that he would not, he would blow me off, but I figured I'd give it a shot. But I mean, I even sent him a super chat, say, hey, I sent you a DM, man. You want to hit me back? Nothing. After that, he nothing, absolutely nothing. But because he's too busy making a case against Niji, I almost guarantee, based upon how he talks, that he only does plaintiff type of attorneyism, where he is pursuing big companies. He goes after big companies. I mean, that's just the feeling I get when I hear him talk, because he does not. I mean, he sits there and literally cherry picks out of sentences. He cherry picks specific parts, and then he doesn't go on to the next sentence, which basically defines what he's trying to talk about. I mean, that's just the way he rolls. Red, good morning. Good morning. It's nice to see you. I know there's a guy on YouTube that knows Japanese law, and yes, Japanese law is different. Yes, and it took him 3 streams to even get to that point. I mean, it took him 3 streams to get to the point of what Japanese law actually says. So he had already put out there to over 170 some odd views. The impression that his interpretation of what's going on completely wrecked Nijisanji, but then it took him that long. It took him 3 streams just to get to. Oh, by the way, Japanese law is different. No one cares, because you've already told them that you wrecked you wrecked Niji. That's all they wanted to hear. They didn't want to hear whether or not the laws are different. He didn't want to hear the defense that Niji and the people who still work for Niji, who are getting slandered. It took him over 14 hours of live streaming before he came out and said, yeah, you know what, slandering them is wrong. It's like, yeah, maybe you should have said that when you first started. I mean, did you, are you, it took him that long to even think about Vox and Ike and Elra before, it's like, yeah, oh yeah, I totally agree. I would never condone that. Well, thank you for telling that 14 hours later. And people are like, well, they're taking what you're saying and they're attacking them. He's like, no, I never condone that. Well, you should fucking say that at the very beginning, not 14 hours in. You know what I'm saying? Watching Legal Mindset rinsing Daft's lines is very much satisfying. He does say a lot that is I feel like again, looking at it from the West, there's a lot that he says that I say, yeah, that's right, that's how I feel too, but and that's the feel and that's what that's what he's going for when he's streaming. He wants that appeal to people. So because as a streamer, of course you want that revenue, you want that watch, you want that like, you want that subscription, as a streamer, that's what you want, but the way he presents things is like, okay, 90%, this is looking at it from a Western point of view while trying to apply, certain little snippets of what he knows of Japanese law, versus actually going out and saying, this is the law of defamation, this is how it works, this is what the articles are, this is how you can classify intent and not intent under their defamation laws. He doesn't do that. He just doesn't do that. And it drives me nuts because I'm sitting here going, okay, but you're missing the complete point of what the actual law is, and how it's actually applied. He instead he pulls up he pulls up a reference point, a resource reference article on a website, and then claims all this as gospel, right? And yeah, this may actually explain some of it, but it's well over a year old, and does not hold any of the current resolutions or things that are implemented as of 2023. It's old. It's a dated document, and even some of the stuff in here is over 4 years old that no longer applies. And you can't do that. You can't do that when you're trying to present the most accurate picture, and you go out and just because this is in English, say this is the best reference point, because it's not. It's not. And there are resources out there that have it translated, that are from government sites, or sites that collaborate with the government to translate things so the English world can understand what the laws actually are. It's just, it drives me nuts. Yep, rinsing is actually nice to hear, though. We still know why. Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree on that subject. Yeah, and bear in mind, I do not mean to say that Mr. Esquire is completely wrong on 100% of what he says, okay? Some of it does speak relevancy and truth. However, it's important to also understand that the way he presents it is purely from a plaintiff attorney point of view, as somebody who is representing somebody else that's going after a big company, and that's his MO. That's what he does. That I'm not saying that he represents Doki Bird what I'm saying is that that's the viewpoint that he presents. He has never once sounded like a defense attorney at all. It very much sounds like he's on the other side of the defense attorney. He's not ace attorney. He's not defending. He's very much on the other side. Yeah, he's not representing her. Yeah, but he does speak like he what he would do if he were her. Yeah, he did. He went a long time, especially on that second stream. He went over 9 hours on that second stream, and I think it was only 4 or 5 on the first stream, and then he did another little thing where he like tried to cover things on a more focused level for Japanese law, but even that he strayed off the path so much. He did, half the time he was answering super chats and just BSing with people that are talking to him. I'm like, I went almost an hour before he actually started talking about anything relevant to Japanese law. And then he talked about it for like maybe 10 minutes. And then he strayed off the path again and talked about nonsense until like the 3rd or 4th hour. And then he finally went back to it. I'm like, there's no substance in this thing. The relevant substance was just completely gone, But anyways, guys, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here because if I want to try playing Enshrouded later, I need to rest my voice and rest my head because I wish they could figure out how to control these ear infections, but I'm just like, ugh. So, yeah, Red, thank you so much for dropping in. CJC, thank you for dropping in. Beavers, thank you for dropping in. And any of the lurkers that are out there, thank you so much for dropping in as well. Always appreciate you guys. If I cancel tonight, I'll post that if I'm rescheduling. Otherwise, I do have something planned for tonight, but we'll see if I do it or not. So, all right, thanks guys for dropping in and listening to me rant. Like I said, hopefully this is the last time we talk about this thing because I'm ready to move on. And I don't think I'm going to be watching Legal Mindset anymore because I think he's said all the things he wants to say. So, all right, thanks guys. You have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, whatever the case may be. This is Marko Yamashita signing off. Peace.
I like to get paid, that's why I work every day. I'll be making money till I'm in my